and welcome to yet another episode of Shift Podcast, where we talk with people about overcoming their comfort zones and really just stepping out of their own kind of internal BS that sometimes stops us from achieving our potential, and just having regular conversations with regular people that are doing amazing and impactful things. And I'm really excited to have with me today Liam Kelly. Liam is a teacher first and foremost. He's also an author of multiple children's books. He is a comic creator. And his mission is to give children a voice that allows them to express their feelings. And personally, I'm just really excited to chat with you. Children is not something I've worked with in the past and in our work. And I'm really curious to see what are you doing in this space, and also being a teacher and just having your own story to tell. I think that the mission you're on is just phenomenal. And I'm really excited for others to hear it as well. So welcome, Liam.
Well, thank you for having me. I've been a big fan and follower of yours for a very long time. And I'm just happy that you're allowing me to share my story today.
Yeah. So let's just dive into. Let's start with something easier. So let's talk a little bit about. Tell me one thing that people don't really know about you.
I had my first anxiety attack when I was 6 years old, and that's how everything started. Wow.
All right. So tell me a little bit more about that, because that's very much aligned with the work that you're doing now.
Yeah. So I was 6 years old, and I always had a little nervous thing about me when I went to school. I was always a little bit worried about what people thought about me and how they perceived me. And during this particular day at school, and I can remember it like it was yesterday, and the teacher had asked me to walk to the front of the room to say a particular word. She had pointed to the word, but in those days at school, you had to walk to the front and you had to say the word in front of the whole class. And I really found that quite frightening and scary. And I can remember the teacher saying to me, Liam, and I tried to hide behind everybody, but she kind of seen me, doing that. And she asked me to walk to the front of the room. And as I was walking to the front of the room, my arms got really, really heavy. And this is something that children feel every day at school, whether it was 30 years ago or whether it was today or yesterday. And as I walked to the front of the room, I could really feel my whole body starting to heat up. My heart was pounding. And I looked around and I could see everybody looking towards me. And that really frightened me. And the teacher had pointed to this particular word. And this was a big teacher, and I respected her a lot. She was a hero to me as well. And she asked me to say this particular word. And the word was look. Mm-hmm. L-O-O-K. It seems pretty straightforward. But as I started to say the word, I couldn't really say the full word. And it came out like, and I couldn't finish the word. And as soon as I had said the first few sounds, everyone started laughing at me. And children weren't being mean towards me. They thought it sounded funny. But to me, it really hurt. It really, really hurt me inside. And it was the first time where I had that feeling of an anxiety attack. And it was the first time I really had my invisible tears. And that's important. Throughout my life at school, I had these invisible tears where no one could really see me getting upset inside. And I walked back to the room, to my seat, and I was in bits. And the children in front of me who were possibly laughing didn't really fully understand the impact that they were having on me. And I walked back to the table, and I put my head down, and I cried my eyes out. And all I wanted to do was run home and hug my mum. And I can remember like it was yesterday. And it still hurts in a way, because I wasn't able to tell my mum when I went home that I had a situation at school which really upset me. And as soon as I got through the door, my mum had said to me, and as all parents do as well, how was school? And I had said, brilliant. I was just so ashamed to tell my mum that I was crying inside and people were laughing at me, because my mum was a hero to me. And I didn't want to let her down. And that was the first time where I really had an anxiety attack. I was 6 years old. And it was the first time where I started to feel like I felt I was different. I really felt like there was something really, really fundamentally wrong with me in some respects. But I was like everybody else. I worried. Worries a natural part of growing up. But in those days, no one talked about worries. No one talked about feelings and emotions. So therefore, I had no idea what was going on inside of me. And I really, really did feel different. And it wasn't a nice feeling.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So, and there's, I have a few questions around that, but I'm curious, so was it one of the things that inspired you to also then become a teacher? Is that kind of how your journey started, to say, how can I give back? Like when was it that you, I guess, understood, how old you were that you understood that this is something you were going through? Was it at that age of 6, or was it later in life that you're like, this is what it was, and now I'm aware of it, and this is what I can do about it?
I think I got to around 9 years old when I really, really started to feel like I was going through these worrying episodes regularly. And at that stage, I really wanted to help others. So at a very young age, I knew I was going to be in education in some respects, whether it was a teacher or possibly a counsellor. And I remember I was in the car with my father, and we were dropping my mum off to the bingo. And when we were driving back, my father said to me, if you want my opinion, son, you'll be a teacher. It's a great job. You help people, and you get to leave school early, and you can be home for your family. And that's what stuck in my head. So for the previous few years, I had all these worries, and my father had said that to me. And that was the moment that I knew I was going to be a teacher. And I was around possibly 11, 12 at that stage. And I knew I was going to be a teacher because I knew that I could help people understand how I was feeling, and I could help them. So right from a young age, I was really wanting to help others.
You know what's interesting? There's a saying, and I'm curious what you think about it. There's a saying that says a lot of, I'm sure I'm going to get it wrong, but it's a lot of adults are just broken children in adult bodies or something like that. You know, so, and I'm just curious, what do you think about that?
I understand what you're saying. I really do, because I never really spoke about my worries and my struggles until I was 36. So I was 36. And remember, I had my first worry at 6. So I had kept everything inside for 30 years. So it really goes to what you were saying there. Inside of me was this child who was really struggling to get out and wanted to get out and tell the story. And like I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying.
And I'm curious. So, and how did that experience and kind of holding that experience internally, I guess, impact you throughout your life? So, if you know, I'm just curious, what impact did it have? Because you've gone through some other challenges as well as a result.
I think from that moment when I could hear people laughing at me, I never wanted to hear that laughter again because it hurt. So I made sure that when I went to school that I was really doing everything to keep people happy. I didn't want people laughing at me. So from a very young age, I had learned, and in fact, I knew more about my friends than I knew about myself. I knew how to keep them happy. And the one person that I wasn't keeping happy was myself. So every day I went to school, I was keeping everybody else happy. And there were times when I was putting extra food in my lunchbox to give to others so that I could become as popular as everybody else. And every day I was learning something new about somebody else. But every day I was losing myself. I was losing who I was. And that's when things started to spiral out of control a little bit as well, because I was a brilliant child. I went to school. I was doing everything that was asked of me, but I wasn't giving myself the credit that I was giving everybody else. And we use these terms today of self-care and self-love. And I guess I missed out on that as well, because I was so focused on other people's perceptions of me. And when I look back, it really does make me think, my goodness, you know, you really did go through a lot, but I really didn't know how to look after myself and give myself self-care. Teachers were at a stage where they weren't really able to cope with, you know, the emotions and feelings that we have in place now. And I don't blame anyone. I don't blame the teacher society, it was how it was in those days. You know, people didn't openly talk about things. But when I look back, the big message is that the one person that I really neglected was myself. Because people weren't able to communicate with me about how to look after myself. And I guess that's what I really want to put across today in the project, of how to look after yourself and how to care for yourself and manage what you're going through. Because children won't always open up, even today. But as long as we can help them manage how they're feeling, possibly go and talk to someone or talk to a friend. And I want to use my experiences to help children and young people and even adults as well.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is that, like, one part of it is, it's almost like it's the silver lining, if there was one, I guess, in that situation, was it actually made you empathetic to others, I'm sure, and kind of really focused on giving. And that's probably, you know, and that led to the larger vision, which is becoming a teacher and doing what you're doing now. It could have gone a different way as well. So I think that's really interesting. And another part you mentioned is, you know, you're completely right. We're not taught in schools about how to speak up necessarily, how to recognize certain emotions that may not be the healthiest, and also how to not internalize one experience that then shapes us for the rest of our lives. And, you know, it's just interesting. And yes, there's been a lot more done in the school system and just in the education world to promote that. But, you know, and I mean, from the perspective of Besson, we work, of course, with you know, professionals, and you can really sense a lot of, you know, things that perhaps been internalized during whatever stages in their life that they now carry very obviously with them. And I'm just curious that, you know, if we're able to spread this mission of actually helping children, you know, that would change the trajectory of generations, essentially. So I think, and I want to also talk a little bit more about, a little bit later, about how do you think social media is going to be impacting kids, and it is impacting kids today. But before we get into that, I know there's the whole piece of, and again, keep in mind, I'm completely ignorant when it comes to this topic, so I'm learning as I go with you right now. But there's a certain choice of words that we need to use with children to be able to express, maybe to help them express how they're feeling. So talk to me a little bit about what do you mean by that?
Well, today, as a teacher today, I go into the classroom and I've got to create an environment where children are free to talk to me and free to be themselves. I look at my own childhood and I think to myself, what did I like in the classroom? What made me feel nervous? And what did I enjoy in class? I didn't like being asked questions where I had to stand up, because I was a very nervous person anyway. So in the classroom, you have to treat every child as an individual. You have to know their strengths and their weaknesses. You have to give them that environment where they're safe to do what they're happy to do. And I never look at a child and say, well, why didn't you do that? Or what is wrong with you? Or are you okay? Because children have this thing about them and they say, I'm okay, I'm okay. You know, every morning I look at the children in my classroom and they're people. I don't classify them as children. They're people to me. They've got feelings. And we have no idea what they're going through. We have no idea what they went through the night before. And that's what we have to remember as well. Children as young as 6 are carrying things inside of them possibly that we have no idea about. So in the classroom that I have, we never judge the person beside us. I try and teach the children about empathy and sympathy. Just today, we were talking in moral education about some key words: respect, superior, inferior, care, love. We were talking about these words. Children hear these words thrown about every day, but they never stop really to think about them. They never stop and think, well, what does that word mean? We looked at the word respect. And I was asking children, what do you think that word means in your life and in my life and the person beside you's life? And they're like, it's about being nice to people. You know, and we had the conversation. And I was talking about, you know, it doesn't matter who's in the school building, whether it's the teacher in front of you, whether it's a security guard at the front gate, They're a person. They've got feelings. We respect them. And I was talking to them about when you leave the school building, just say to that person, have a good evening. And it shows respect. Not only will you feel great about yourself, but the person you're saying it to feels amazing as well. It's building up that level of respect. Because in our classroom, we've got children who might worry, who might not worry. But words are so powerful in every shape and form. Words can really upset people, and words can really inspire people. So those words which children hear every day. What's interesting was there was a word we were using today called sad, and one of the little girls said to me, but mister, we always use the word sad. Can we not use other words? What about disappointed, frustrated? And I was like, wow, this is a great conversation. And I was like, well, why are you using those words? And she said, well, you use those words. So as adults, we really have to try and help our children with words, because sad is a word which is so common. But if you really want to go in more depth into how children are feeling, they have to know the other words and how they're used and in context. Frustration, disappointment. It gives children a little bit more knowledge about how they are thinking themselves. And that will help them manage who they are. And we talked a lot today about those key words. And the children left the classroom. They were walking down the corridor. It was amazing to see. They were saying bye to everybody and have a great evening.
I love it.
It was amazing to see because they were listening. It wasn't just a lesson where we were talking about what does this word mean and what we put it into real life situations, because that's what school is as well. We teach them the English and the maths, but we also teach them social skills. And moral education, I try and teach it every day. And it's an amazing subject to really get in depth with how children are feeling, how they treat other people. And for me, that's what I want children to learn about, using my experiences. And I'm very open with the children about, things I went through as well. And I would have said I was very nervous at school. And if you'd have said that to me at school, I might have felt very frustrated or disappointed. And you might not have meant it in that way. So you really need to be careful about the words you use, because the words are so important and powerful. And it gives the children that little bit of thought where they think, okay, I can see that they might be a little bit upset, so I'm going to say something this way or that way. And that's what children need. Children need real stories. What we try and do as well is that we try and help children. We don't want them to think they're weak. We want children to understand sometimes that it's okay to be vulnerable as well, because that's the gateway to help them. It's a gateway for them to say, okay, I might be feeling a little bit vulnerable, but I can move forward. I'm accepted where I am at this moment in time, and I'm going to move forward. But children need our help. They're children. They haven't experienced life like we have as adults. So we have to help them in the best possible way. And for me, it's about using my experiences. And in the classroom, not every child is going to worry. But what I want children who don't worry is to understand how it feels to worry, so that they can help children who might be worrying. They might say, I'm going to go to a teacher and get a little bit of advice and help, because I want my friend, I don't want them to be worried all the time. So it's helping children to recognize when their peers and their friends are possibly struggling.
Absolutely. I mean, the choice of words alone, I mean, just the way we use words, what we understand about the words, how we apply them to us, making sure not to internalize a lot of these things, right? So it's almost like, and I don't know, I was reading something about words the other day, and it was saying that a lot of times we use words in a way that, we need to recognize that it's not who we are, it's maybe what we're feeling. So be able to differentiate between what we're feeling and not putting labels on ourselves, but just having that distinguish and a distinguisher. So I think it's super important.
And in the classroom as well, we every morning they come in, and I try and get around the whole classroom, and I try and ask them about what they were doing in the evening before, and I try and get involved with them, because it's building trust as well.
Right.
Children, young people will not talk to you if they don't trust you. They need that trust element. And plus, they need to know you care.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, being a teacher, that's what I want to put across to children. If they know that I care, then they know how to care about others. And it's like a domino effect. If they can see it from me, they're going to do it to the next person. And when they get into their possibly, parenthood when they're older, they can start thinking, oh yes, at school we were doing this here. So really, as adults, we play such a crucial role in how we, and you said before, the next generation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's so much that we can do in this space, and I'm really, really excited that somebody like yourself is doing a lot, and I'm going to get into that in terms of some of the books that you're putting out there that are just impactful with real messages. I want to ask you about social media. How do you foresee that this can help or hurt the future generations? Because I have my whole theory on it, but there's just a lot of negativity, a lot of bullying that happens. And I'm just curious, like, what do you see with some of the kids that how do you see it impacting them? And what can we do better, I guess, as adults to make sure that they don't get that?
The children that I teach are very young at the minute for social media, but they're very aware of it. They know it's there. Mm. They know about certain social media sites, and they're using their parents' social media and their big brothers and sisters. So they are using it. Now, children that I teach are very young. And are they using it correctly? Possibly not. They might be. But if they're not using it correctly and they're not educated on how to use it, then that's where the problem can start. Because children might think they can upload something which is very innocent to them, might not be innocent to the people around them. And don't forget, we're trying to teach children that as soon as you put a picture or a post online, it's kind of no longer yours.
Yeah, it's out there.
It's out there, and there's no coming back, because people will repost or people will share it, and that's the problem. Possibly children, they don't see that big picture.
Right.
They don't see what's fine to them, which is might not be fine to someone else, because everybody's got a different personality. And I talk to my children about, even the words you use. The words might be okay for you, but to someone else, they might take it in a different light. So we have to be very careful about the language you use, because on social media, we've got every single culture there. Mm-hmm. You might be upsetting someone, and sometimes children might unintentionally upset someone too. And if that happens and children do get into trouble, then it's actually soul destroying. We need to look at, why has this happened? Do we need to be more robust with allowing children to use it? And I think, at school we use a very safe internal website where children can chat to each other, and we're very much in control of it. But once you go on to the bigger social media sites out there, children will have more freedom. They'll be hiding things from parents and other people, peer pressure, and children will be using it possibly in a way they don't want to use it, but to fit in with social groups, they have to do things and say things to fit in line with people. And that's when the problem starts happening, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Social media, I think, is going to get bigger, because over the last year we've had the pandemic and children are using online facilities more. We know that's a given, but we have to start controlling it, I think, in a more refined, robust way. And parents and adults and teachers, we have a responsibility to help our children, but we have to make it safer for them too. And children will try and hide their social media usage. We know that. But we have to try our hardest as adults and as parents to try and make sure that we're on top of it as much as possible, because it can spiral out of control.
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes one picture, one post that can really destroy someone's whole personality and mentality. One picture, that's all it takes.
Absolutely. I mean, we see this all continuously happening with adults, and I mean, there's so many number of cases, and it's also interesting because it's not just what they put out, but also what they consume. So I completely agree that, and I mean, it's very difficult to find solutions to something like this, right? Unless you just, I don't know, what can you do? I mean, it's very difficult to control it and to manage it. But I think education is where it's at, just educating, providing them with that resilience, you know, making sure that they understand, you know, like these, just understanding being able to process their own kind of thoughts and feelings and emotions in a healthy way. I think not internalizing. I think that's probably a good starting point, at least. Let me look back a bit about you at the age of 36, when, you know, you've decided to now sort of address some of the things that you've been noticing. So if you don't mind, like, what happened at 36 that made you, you know, want to make the change?
I had moved back home to a little village, Moneyglass in Northern Ireland, and I wanted to move back home full time. And something had happened, and people kept saying to me, "You'll be all right. Tomorrow's a new day. What have you got to worry about? You're at home. You finally come back, and you know you should be happy." But these were lines that people were saying to me, and they had no idea what really I was thinking. It was just words they had used probably frequently. "You'll be okay. Tomorrow's a new day." But to me, tomorrow wasn't a new day. I was getting frustrated because people were just saying things and they weren't really getting inside of me. And I felt sad and I felt lonely. And I kind of went into my bedroom and I sat there and I cried for about a good few hours. And I was like, why is no one understanding me? And it was really, really upsetting because I was thinking, am I doing something wrong? This has been my whole life. What is wrong with me? And I said to myself, I cannot tell people how I'm feeling. Why don't I just write it down? Because it seemed to be from the previous 30 years, no one seemed to be understanding me through my verbal words. So I thought, let's get it written down. And so originally I had started to write a book about me as a 36-year-old man struggling. But then I thought, it's better if I go right back to the start. So let's go right back. Okay, I'm 36, but let's help children now. Okay, I've been through my life. I've struggled. I want to heal now. I want to really get into this, and I really want to help, you know, others. So I went right back. I started writing Read William. About 3 days later, I had the full manuscript written. And I'm not joking, 3 solid days in that bedroom. I didn't shower, wash, or anything. My mom was getting quite worried about me. She's like, are you okay? And I was like, no, I need to focus. I'm
on a mission.
I'm on a mission. And that's when people say to me, how do you have time? For me, it's not about time. It's about passion. And when you are passionate about something, time doesn't come into it. You do it because you're passionate about it. You want to have that impact. You don't want to see children struggling anymore. And you will spend 24/7 doing it. You manage your time. So for me, it's about being passionate about helping others and making sure that people understand how a little guy or a little girl feels and what they're going through. It's about helping people understand, because they might not understand. Because all my life, no one seemed to understand what I was going through. All I had to do was smile and say, I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what people do still today.
Absolutely.
So I kind of had started writing the first book it was released in 2017. And the front of the book had a character called Worried William, who was me, I suppose. I didn't admit it was Worried William was me at the start because I was still very embarrassed. In fact, I was ashamed. I had written the book, but I never admitted it was me. So I was still ashamed that I'd written the book. So it took about a year to finally admit, Worried William is me. I told my mum, and now I'm not joking here, it still gets me today, the fact that I told my mum that I worried all my life. And as you can imagine as a mum, it broke her heart and it broke my heart. I wanted to tell her from the age of 6, from the age of all my life, I wanted to tell her. And there were so many days where I got close. I'd walk home and I would say, I'm going to tell my mum today, I'm going to tell my mum. I got into the kitchen and I couldn't. I didn't know how to tell her. I didn't. And I can still see her looking at me thinking, what were you going to say? No, it doesn't matter. I'll go to my room. And you would go to your room and you'd cry your eyes out, and and then your mum would come down and you'd pretend you were sneezing. And then, what's wrong with you? Oh no, must be allergy or something. You know what I mean? So you started to develop this little side job of trying to hide everything. And I really wanted to tell the most amazing woman of my life. And it took me until the age of 36, 37 to tell her. And when I did tell her, you know what I mean? She was my hero. And she said to me, was I a bad mom? And I was like, oh my goodness. No, you were not a bad mom. You were an amazing mom. But I just didn't know how to tell you. And for all the moms that will be listening to this, you have to understand it's not your fault. You know, as children, we don't want to disappoint you.
Right.
We don't want to let you down. And so that's really where the first book had come from. But then when I told my mom and I told her the reasons why, she started to understand it. So then the next kind of episode happened. As soon as I signed my first book contract, I moved to Abu Dhabi. And then my mom said, now you've signed a book contract, you won't have to leave. And I said, I'm going in January. And she said, oh no, you're not going. Like, oh no, not the eyes. And it broke my heart again. And I was like, because I seem to be disappointing my mom so much in a period of time. And so my mom said, you know, look, do what you have to do, but promise me you'll come home every break, every summer. And I said, no problem at all. I love my mom. And the last year has been very difficult because I haven't seen my mom in person for the last year and a half. And that's been quite upsetting as well. On the phone and things like that, it's not the same when you're standing beside your mom and you want to hug her. And, you know, and so what we're doing now is that first book had a picture of Worried William in the front with a frown, because that's what it felt like all my life. But we are re-releasing the first book again as a second edition. But this time, we're putting a smile on the front cover. And that smile symbolizes what we're trying to break the stigma, that a worried child will sometimes have a smile too. So when I look back in my life, I was smiling more than I was frowning because I was hiding it. And that's what children do. They build up this, you know, this awareness of, if I just smile, people think I'm happy. You know, and it's all about creating the environment and using the words. And so what I really want from Worried William is, it's a 21-book series. And the last book's called Wonderful William. And it really is that any child can pen a story. You can pen your own story. But the story tells about Worried William, all his secondary life at school and, you know, the relationships he's had with his friends. But I still worry today. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't worry, because I do. But I'm in control of my worries now more than I was when I was 6 or I was 9. Because I'm able to step back now and actually look in and say, hang on a second here, let's just take a breath. Let's just step back and think, okay, talk to people and say, right, because that's sometimes what it takes. It's just speaking to someone and saying, you know, I had a bad day today, and just sharing that with them. You know, you don't have to share everything, but just talking to them. And that's what I do now, and it helps so much. But children need to be told that from a very young age, And it helps them. If they see me doing it, then they're going to start doing it. And what I do in class today is I say to children, write it down in a post-it and stick it in my top pocket or stick it under my table. And just write it down. Because I could never, ever tell people how I was feeling, but I could write it. So
I love that.
So it's kind of, for me, the Worried William series is now the second book. The first book is released in London. It's now coming to the UAE this month as a second edition. And amazingly, it's going to be published in Arabic too.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so awesome. Yeah.
Because I really want to thank the people here in the UAE for helping me as a person, as an author, and as a teacher. And there's something for me to give back to the people here to say thank you for looking after me and helping me on this healing journey, which I'm on. And at the minute, we've got, this week, we have the new poem book coming out. And I'm not on here to talk about all book releases. I'm here to tell you about how I was able to manage and overcome some of my worries. And about 3 years ago, I noticed that I had written down a lot of things when I was younger. I went home and I looked at one of my school books and I seen things that I was writing. And they were kind of poetic. So then I put on Facebook, I'm going to do a poetry month. And within a month, I had hundreds of poems sent to me from parents, from grandparents, from people all over the world. And I thought to myself, these poems are too good. So I put them into the book and I submitted it to my publisher in UAE here, Austin Macauley. And within a few months, Liam, this is a brilliant idea. Let's get it into a book. Let's get it published. And it's got 39 poems in it because I was 39 when I had first thought of the book. And it's going to be in English and Arabic too. Now, if you want to read heartfelt poems about how children feel, that's the book to read because it's genuine and it's honest. What you'll find with me is I'm very honest with how I feel because I have to be vulnerable to allow my story to reach people. I need to be vulnerable for people to say, this guy's speaking from the heart. And it's difficult. Like I sometimes I go to bed at night and I say to myself, how did I talk today about this? Or how did I sit in a podcast and talk about how I'm feeling? But I have to remember this isn't about me anymore. It's about the children coming through in the next generation. It's about the parents who are saying to me, my child is he's struggling too, or she's struggling. What can I look out for? And that's the purpose of what I'm doing now. So I'm coming away from me. I'm okay. I've got through things now. I'm healing and I'm managing them. But I now need to think of the next generation and how I can help others. And that's where the impact comes from. And what I was doing at school was, and in my 20s and my 30s, I had a lot of things in me. I was good at drawing. I was good at being creative and all of that. But I was so worried about what others were thinking that, like I said before, I was missing out on me and what I was good at. I was more worried about what the person beside me was thinking. Do they like me or don't they like me? Or are they going to laugh at me? And that's what I was missing out on. But, and this is quite a big statement, I wouldn't change a thing now because I feel like I'm doing something now which I'm good at. And I'm doing something now where I can have an impact. Because people need to hear real stories, as painful as it is. And the only thing that really upsets me today is that my mum has to hear these stories, and that breaks my heart still. Because she's hearing these, and people in the community might say, "Well, where was your mum at?" But I get very upset sometimes when I think of that. But my mum supports me. And the local community supports me too. And people are joining my journey now because they know it's no one's fault. It's just, it was time, it was circumstances of society. But we can't allow that to happen today. We have to help people. We have to help schools, parents, children. And we have to start this at a very young age. We're not going to go into a bunch of 5 and 6-year-olds and start talking about mental health and mental well-being, but we can start talking about feelings. What feeling do you associate with this? Or if your friend was looking like this, what would you do? And helping them interact with each other. And it's not always a case of, are you okay? Because people are going to say, I'm okay.
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm okay.
So sometimes my mom and I will sit at home and we'll just watch a movie and we'll be beside each other. And that's all it takes. And one of the big statements that Worried William has on Facebook is the greatest gift that we can give our children is our time. That soul time, you and them, and getting to know them as an individual, as a person. For me, that's so important.
Yeah. Listen, it's so many just actionable things that people can do from what you said, whether they're, most of the people that are going to be listening to this are going to be the educators or those who have kids. And I love the point about, if you feel like, whether it's kids in your school or your own children or, I don't know, siblings that are not expressing themselves, I think that writing down is so brilliant. Just letting them, write that down. And the impactful part here is that not only, should we encourage kids to speak up, but most importantly, we should create space for them to feel comfortable and safe to do so.
Yeah.
And you're right. And I think we really need to, move away from this very standard. And a lot of it is a cultural thing. When you ask somebody, how are you doing? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm fine. We lost the what's the word? The impact that we can make when we actually ask somebody how they're doing and actually be willing to listen and create a space versus just saying it for the sake of saying it. But really ask somebody. But again, as you mentioned, the safety aspect needs to be there. So I think most importantly, we need to be vulnerable ourselves, because that opens up other people to being vulnerable with us. And particularly, I'm sure with children, it's the same. I don't have experience with children, but with adults, I can see how a lot of these things are applicable to adults as well, except it's much more difficult as adults to open up and to be vulnerable. So it's honestly, spot on. I would love to read the poems from the children. I think that's probably so impactful. And I think you should. This should be promoted and this should be shared, because it's through words that we can heal, and it's through messages. Personally, there's books that's changed my life, and things that should be promoted and they should be known about and screamed about from top of buildings, because it's you never know how it can impact somebody. So it's important. But listen, where can people find you? Where can they follow you on this journey? What do you use right now?
At the minute, we've got on Facebook is my biggest platform. I use it a lot, just at Worried William. And I'm on Instagram, the same. And it kind of documents all of the struggles that I have. And I kind of use all the characters in the Worried William series. So we've got the Worried William project is very inclusive. And we've got, children, a lot of children, children who may be struggling. We've got children who are extremely happy. We're including every single child that you will meet in life. No child is left out, and I'm trying to put a lot of my struggles into different characters. So I've got one character, and it talks about my eating disorder. And it's a very important subject. I know we might be running out of time, so I'm very conscious, because from the age of 6 years old, I said I had my first worry. And when I was 13, somebody had said to me my T-shirt looked very tight. And for 25 years, I was bulimic. And I still can't get my head around it either. and I'm trying to process it. I'm really trying to heal from it. And I was 38 when I finally admitted that I had a problem. And when you're going through an eating disorder, your mood changes, and not only are you suffering from anxiety, but you're suffering from this eating disorder. And people don't understand that eating disorders don't link to one gender. They link to people. It affect anybody. And I struggled for 25 years with it, and it was a horrible thing that I struggled with, and I didn't know how to get out of it. It overtaken me. And the book series called Ollie Oliver documents my bulimia battle. It's a 9-book series, and it really starts to talk about in depth about how I actually how it all started. And it's a very honest account. Again, I get back to my whole story about my mom, my community, and people will say, well, why didn't you tell anybody? And that's what I get a lot of. Why didn't you tell anybody? There's only one word which I can describe it. Ashamed. I felt ashamed of what I was doing. And it felt like I felt disgusting. I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. And I was a grown man, and I was doing this, and I knew what I was doing. And there might have been some days where I was purging maybe 10 times, and it was taken out of me. And I'm going to school. I'm really struggling as well, and people around me, I'm trying to hide it, but what people don't realize is that I was in front of them for 25 years. But the eyes were always there. The eyes never lie. Because when you're being purged and being sick, your eyes are very bloodshot, and your face can start puffing up. And this book series is really to give awareness about eating disorders. And it's very important because it's more common than people think. When I talk to people, people say, you were bulimic for 25 years? I'm like, yeah. I'm not embarrassed about it. It was part of me. Again, it helps me educate others, because people need that education. They need to know how things start, how things spiral out of control. And I guess I'm a survivor of it. I'm lucky to get through to tell my story. And that's what I want to do, is share this story. I want to come away from me and share my story with others, because that's what it's about. So this whole project is really about the things that I've gone through, and in the hope that I can save someone else or help someone else. If I can help one person, amazing. If I can help 10 people, even better. For me, you have to be vulnerable. People see you as a person, they see an honest person who's telling his story. And this is the happiest I've ever been in my life. And if you think of all the struggles I've been through, and some days I do struggle and with things I've gone through, and I'm very overwhelmed with support and people messaging me. And sometimes I think, I don't deserve this. I've got through it. There's other people out there going through worse things than I went through. I'm lucky to get through it. I had people in my life who supported me. All I want to do is say to people, there are people out there who are going through worse things than me. I'm lucky. I can tell my story. I can give children a voice. But for me, all I want to do from this moment on is to use my books, to use my voice. Because the poem book's called Hidden Words. And I don't want words to be hidden anymore. I want children to be able to talk about how they're feeling in an open and honest way.
That's amazing. And I think just helping people understand, like you said, the help them be able to recognize, and giving them maybe some tools that they can use to create these safe conversations. And because I think we're just, as humans, we're not taught to have uncomfortable conversations either, and sometimes we just don't know how, and we try to just avoid it. We try to as those that are going through it, we try to hide it because we don't want to, we feel ashamed, right? And then those who maybe they see something, they're not sure how to go about it. And it's uncomfortable. And I think that if we're just a little bit more educated about it, if we have a little bit more, removing the stigma about talking about these things and learning how to recognize some of these signs, I think we can definitely, for future generations and even the current ones, will be better off as a society. So I think what you're doing is beyond just impacting, in specific areas. I think it's just helping people communicate and share better and understand each other better, and that can be applied to anybody, anywhere, anytime, essentially. So it's beyond just a particular kind of group of children or generations. I think it's brilliant.
It's, for me, I'm lucky. I've got a great publisher. We're going to go to America this year with Worried William, which is where we're going to go global. And what started off in a bedroom for 3 days writing a book, provisionally I've got 422 books to write. I'm starting my master's next month on mental health to fully understand why I was feeling the way I was. I can talk about it, but I really want to know why I felt that way, and to have more of an impact in society to help people as well. But my journey, in some respects, has only just begun. Because I want to use my experiences to help others, and having chatting with you today will help me with that as well. And I'm honored to be talking to you today because I feel like the conversations help. It's raising the awareness.
Absolutely, and I'm thankful for your time, and I'm going to share all the links with the audience when I share this, and I'm sure people will follow and get in touch. I'm definitely really looking forward to the books as well. Listen, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's going to have global impact. It already is having that global impact through the work that you do today, and I hope it becomes bigger and bigger because it's an important message. And I think if we can have more of these kind of messages that are out there, we'll be better off as a human race in general. So I think it's impactful, and it's what more can one say? It's what we need. It's what we need. We need more of these. We need more of these kind of things in life. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.